The Lancashire coastline in northwest England has traditionally been a destination for holidaymakers. But for 4 days in July, all roads, and indeed rails, lead to Royal Lytham St Annes Golf Club, the host for the 130th Open Championship. The landlocked course relies on natural elements for protection, heavy rough, not to mention scores of penal bunkers. It's a venue that, since first staging the Open in 1926, has demanded the respect of the very finest players, past and present.
This golf course is going to present a lot of challenges. You're going to be tested, and you're probably going to get mentally drained, and even physically drained if the conditions become tough.
The course is very, very good, very tough. They really have made a very, very good job of setting this course up. The best I've seen for an Open venue ever.
Ticket sales in the car park on your right.
There was a keen sense of familiarity as the players arrived for the first day's play. Only 5 years had elapsed since the last Open was played at Royal Lytham St Annes, and fond memories were still very fresh. None more so than for this year's defending champion. It was in 1996 that, following a second round 66 that served to underline his enormous potential, Tiger Woods received the silver medal, awarded as the championship's leading amateur. It was in 1996 when the Minnesotan Tom Lehman became the first American professional to triumph in an Open on these historic links.
There's a bit of walking down memory lane this week. There is some comfort to me that goes with that, knowing that I've played it before. Being comfortable with a golf course and enjoying a golf course is invaluable. And anytime you feel that way about a place, it only helps.
The championship of 5 years ago also saw the debut of the precociously talented Spaniard Sergio Garcia.
Well, I can remember a lot of good memories. Although I missed a cat, I remember I had a lot of fun with Tom Lehman, and it was just a great experience. It was my first British Open too, my first major, and I have a lot of good memories.
Back then, Garcia was a very promising amateur with a big future. Now he's a world star. The Open always provides a perspective for the passage of time. Bob Charles was the champion here in 1963. This will be the New Zealander's swan song.
My first Open was here in 1958, and my last Open will be here in 2001. I've enjoyed a lot of success here, and the game has been good to me. I've seen a lot of changes over the years, and it's been great to be part of it.
Charles lifted the Claret Jug following a playoff with the American Phil Rogers. But Gary Player won the 1974 Open around these links by 4 clear shots. It was his third Open Championship victory.
From South Africa, Gary Player.
Player is now 65, and this too will be his last Open outing. He, like Charles, is another who believes his life has been enriched by his wealth of experience of the Open Championship.
Coming over here has been part of my life. And everything shall pass. It's been a wonderful experience, something that I will treasure for the rest of my life.
From former champions to the title holder, Tiger Woods is the focal point of attention wherever he goes, but at Royal Lytham he finds relative sanctuary on the first tee. The opening hole, a par 3, has its tee tucked away in the trees and isn't accessible to the gallery awaiting down at the green.
It certainly is unusual for professional golfers not to be playing in front of big crowds from the first tee at championships. It's just a matter of geography here at Royal Lytham. There is no room for spectators on the first tee, and it does give an unusual atmosphere.
But the unaccustomed serenity fails to nudge Woods out of kilter. Immediately into his stride, the runaway world #1 sets up the opportunity for a birdie.
I think the players in some ways quite enjoy it, but there's certainly plenty of people in big crowds waiting for them at the other end of the hole.
Off and running, Woods converts his tee shot into a birdie. But the man who famously didn't tangle with a single bunker on the way to victory at St Andrews last year soon encounters one of the 196 traps that provide one of Royal Lytham's stern defences. That escape was required at the 6th. At the next, Woods finds trouble of a different variety. He's clearly not firing on all cylinders, but still manages to end the day with a par round of 71. Inevitably, more will be heard of him. An early morning start proved agreeable to the constitution of Brad Faxon. The American, as usual, wielded his putter to great effect, posted a 68 before lunch. And there was a solid 70 from Garcia, confident after capturing 2 titles in the United States leading up to the championship. There was, however, only one candidate for shot of the day. Texan Jeff Maggott struck a 6-iron second shot, 212 yards to the par 5 6th. In fact, he struck it perfectly. An albatross, or as they say in Maggott's home city of Houston, a double eagle. Whatever the terminology, it was pretty good. But the first round was dominated by Colin Montgomerie, the Scot who in previous years has frustratingly been unable to reproduce his week-in, week-out excellence at the Open. This time, though, the Scot birdied the first 2 holes and his round gathered more momentum thanks to this deft chip at the 6th. Better was to come for Montgomerie, much to the delight of an ever-growing gallery. He cranked out another birdie at the 8th, and Monty, as he's affectionately known, found his name at the top of the leaderboard. Playing alongside Montgomerie was the popular American Fred Couples. He was going well until finding that fiendish spot at the 14th. The outcome was a triple bogey 7, and a disgruntled Couples had to settle for a 71. At least he was in good company. But the old maestro, South African sand specialist Gary Player, continued to entertain, indeed amaze, by conjuring up some magical bunker play. Sand wasn't the sole hazard. Those who strayed off the straight and narrow found themselves deep in the inhospitable Open Championship rough. David Duval exercised sensible caution during a round of 69 that built a solid platform, as well as a healthy respect for the course.
This championship is different from the other majors. When you play a golf course like this, if you make any small mistake, it's just compounded. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, you can't play out of the bunkers and you can't much play out of the rough.
Montgomerie managed to at the 15th and was eventually able to scramble a par, as he did on the 16th and the 17th, with single putts representing a justifiable source of pride. His birdie putt on the 18th, greeted by a thunderous roar, was the icing on the cake. Even so, he recognized it was a time to keep his feet on the ground.
All this is a good start. There's nothing more than that. And I haven't had a good start like this in an Open, and it's very pleasing that I can still perform round links courses and lead majors. It's a game of confidence. If you're confident of doing something, you'll achieve it.
Montgomerie's achievement was a 3-shot advantage from the Americans Faxon and Chris DiMarco, who were joined on 68 by Finland's Mikko Ilonen, winner of the 2000 Amateur Championship at Hoylake. Not quite the flying doctors, more the peddling medics, who were omnipresent throughout the week, providing swift on-course attention to needy spectators and the like.
Lytham St Annes is quite a difficult course to get around because of the hills and also the large crowds that we have here. So we wanted to make sure that we responded to any call as quickly as possible. So we've got the mountain bikes with the defibrillators and everything else you might want on the bicycle. We should get to most places within 2 or 3 minutes at the very most. And then the buggy will come along behind and try and get through the crowds, which will take longer.
This new innovation was a godsend for the 53 patients who received express treatment from the pedal medics. And when there was time to catch a breath and rest their weary legs, there was certainly plenty of action to catch up on from one of the vantage points. Frank Licklighter is among those thriving as the second round gets underway. Jack Nicklaus once recorded a hole-in-one at the 5th, and to his great delight, Licklighter follows in the footsteps of his illustrious fellow countryman. Nothing quite so spectacular from Jesper Parnevik, but the Open Championship runner-up in both 1994 and 97 adds a 68 to his opening 69 to stand 5 under par going into the weekend. The Swedes, like Saab, the official courtesy cars, were in abundance. Pierre Fulke, getting ready for his Ryder Cup debut, is second after an impressive 67, 6 under par for him. And little-known Niklas Fast keeps the yellow and blue flag flying high.
Draw.
A pair of 69s and some bold golf enable the 29-year-old from Gothenburg to remain very much in the thick of things. On a day when, once again, thousands descend on Royal Lytham and St Annes. Northern Ireland's Darren Clarke, the pre-championship selection of many knowledgeable observers, keeps the home fires burning. Clarke follows his first round 70 with a controlled 69. David Duval demonstrated a smooth touch in the early stages. This led to a birdie at the 6th. But the man behind those trademark dark glasses had problems with fairway bunkers and on the greens as he faded to a 73, level par for the 2 days. The bulk of those in attendance on day 2 were pulling for Montgomerie, and he didn't disappoint. After equaling his personal best round in the Open 24 hours earlier, the 38-year-old wasn't quite in top gear. But he did deliver some fireworks, such as here at the 13th. The 70 left him 7 under par, still 1 clear of the field, and in good heart. The expected Tiger Woods charge failed to materialise as a result of some wayward shots, especially from the tee. On the 14th, he was so far wide of the fairway, his ball came to rest on a spectator's walkway. His recovery was reminiscent of Severiano Ballesteros, who miraculously made a swashbuckling birdie on the 16th in 1979, after his tee shot landed in a supposed car park. He went on to capture the first of his 2 Open titles at Royal Lytham after that recovery. Great days, but there was never a hint that a hat-trick was possible. Despite flashes of his old self, Ballesteros comfortably missed the cut. Sevi's car park escape yielded the desired result. And Woods also took full advantage of his good fortune. Woods then found himself handily placed, but with plenty of weekend work necessary to join the elite group that have managed a successful Open Championship defence. Mind you, after that 3, he knew anything was possible. There were also echoes of the past when the ball of Davis Love III almost entered the clubhouse before it was supposed to. Love found himself in a similar predicament to Gary Player on the closing hole in 1974. On that occasion, with the club secretary hanging out of the window for a good view of proceedings, ambidextrous skill enabled player to limit the damage and pull off a shot that sealed the destination of the Claret Jug. 27 years on, player didn't qualify for the last 2 rounds, but that couldn't prevent one of golf's outstanding international ambassadors being treated to a hero's reception as he walked up the 18th fairway.
Having visited here in this championship on 47 occasions, I've had wonderful times here and made a lot of friends and a lot of fans that have had great challenges. And I appreciate the history of the game over here so much, where it all started. It did bring back many great memories, particularly of my 3 wins. But not only the times that you win, the times that you've played over here and not played well. It's always been such a great challenge. It's the ultimate as far as a golf tournament is concerned, and it's my favourite championship.
And player has been one of ours. Meanwhile, Love, with sufficient room to manoeuvre and play his shot right-handed, prods the ball onto the putting surface. Love, who tamed fearsome winged foot to win the 1997 USPGA Championship, signs for a 67 and stands 2 under overall after somehow saving par. But there's no joy for Tom Lehman. He becomes one of 9 former Open champions to depart after the 2nd round. The list includes John Daly, Nick Faldo, Justin Leonard, Tom Watson, Tony Jacklin, and Bob Charles, who, like player, bows out gracefully. Monty remains at the head of affairs, while Greg Owen, a 29-year-old Englishman, and Joe Ogilvy from across the Atlantic are the surprise packages on a leaderboard that's a sight for sore eyes in Sweden. As always, the greenkeeping staff at Royal Lytham St Annes work long hours to keep the course in pristine condition. But it wasn't the only turf in Lytham St Annes to receive special treatment that week. A mile or so outside the gates, there's also some mowing to be done by the landlord of the Taps Public House, a popular watering hole where, for the town's big week, the wooded floor is transformed into an indoor lawn. Spikes allowed for a clientele that's anything but pint-sized.
It's so unique having the Open here in Lytham. We just wanted to do something completely different, so we laid grass. We laid it on Sunday morning, and it started growing immediately, so I've had to cut it and water it and generally look after it like a lawn. Well, it all started on the last Open. Someone talking about, oh, we'll put grass down for the Open, have to do something for the people to entertain them, and everyone was asking, are we putting turf down again? And here it is.
After the day's action, the galleries from the links then carefully marshalled themselves into the covered fairway of the local establishment. Visitors from around the world popped in to sample the brew, drink in the atmosphere, and reward the enterprise of mine host, who was clearly enjoying himself.
The town's buzzing. I mean, it's the whole of Lytham entertaining the rest of the world. All the golfers have been in. People from Zimbabwe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America. Yeah, it's just completely international. It's really good. We're actually thinking of creating a water hazard as well and calling it the Paddle In.
Moving day. In this case, spectators moving to the best vantage points and supporting their favourites. Now, which one is the real Jesper? The overnight leader arrived in relaxed mood, still happy to be top of the pile. But possibly the biggest smile of the Saturday morning was on the face of David Dixon, who, having made the cut, found himself in the enviable position of being the only amateur left in the field, and thus a dead cert to collect the silver medal after his final 2 rounds. Dixon finished the day 2 under par, and was honoured to have emulated the famous silver medalist at Royal Lytham in 1996.
It's nice to actually to be sharing something with Tiger for sure, because obviously he's the best golfer in the world, isn't he? So just to follow in his footsteps is one thing, it's a great achievement for me.
Tiger was paired with Mark O'Meara, the 1998 Open champion, and his best friend. The round began encouragingly for Woods, but by attempting to overpower the course, he got to see practically every inch of it. It all added up to an uncharacteristic 73, and Tiger's title was in jeopardy. Bernhard Langer, so close, so often in the Open, started well and got even better. The German, with a number of high finishes in Europe and America this year, showed that at 43, he's lost none of his competitive fire and gritty determination. Langer was paired with a fellow 40-something, Ian Woosnam. With broom-handle putter working productively, the Welshman strode into contention with a brand of vintage golf. It really was super stuff from the 1991 Masters champion. He struck a number of approaches crisply, such as his second to the potentially dangerous 14th. Langer and Woosnam, 40-somethings, both intent on reclaiming former glories. But Greg Owen was responsible for the shot that eclipsed all others on day 3. Like Jeff Maggott on day 1, Owen managed to pencil in a 2 on a par 5, this time over at the 542-yard 11th. He finished with a 72 and a memory he'll cherish for a very long time. Owen's playing partner, he of the spaceship putter, never really left the launch pad, but a round of 71 kept Jesper Parnevik only one shot off the pace, and with a realistic chance of winning his first major championship. It was on day 3 of the Open at St Andrews last year that David Duval shot a 66 to make his move. Duval chose the same day to make his move this year. This, his second to the 10th, opened the door for a birdie and emphasized the confidence the cool Floridian was exploiting. Of course, everything didn't run perfectly. He was narrowly denied at the 12th, but Duval was displaying both the short game delicacy and raw power to forge back into the reckoning after his Friday disappointments. This monster drive on the 14th, measured at 335 yards, almost reached the spectator crossing and came close to causing a headache for the invaluable bunch of volunteers who make up the Open marshalling staff. As a result of increased attendance figures throughout the century, at the 1958 Open at Royal Lytham St Annes, chestnut fencing and crowd crossing were introduced as an additional form of crowd control.
The theory at the time was that the chestnut fencing would act as a sort of ring, if you like, and that spectators would be kept behind that ring, which didn't happen. All that did happen was that the chestnut fencing tended to be trampled down, and subsequently, of course, the Army took another look at it and changed the theory, which nowadays seems to work, that rope actually is good enough once you've got the crowd educated.
This year, over 750 marshals helped the championship run smoothly. On average, there were 20 of them per hole, more on par 5s, less on par 3s. Before each of the 2 shifts, these enthusiastic ladies and gentlemen, who promoted gallery flow and called for hush when the need arose, were briefed on any specific issues and the task in general. As usual, they did a magnificent job.
The Open Championship couldn't exist without its volunteers, and we have thousands of them. The Marshals, one of the biggest groups, keeping the crowds under control. It is just a key job. British golf crowds are extremely well behaved, enjoy their golf, appreciate their golf, but when things get exciting, they can get a little, as any big group of people can, out of control. It's the Marshals' job just to keep things calmed down, and they do it excellently.
Are you happy down there?
If they're happy, I'm happy.
Okay.
Wish I could hit them like that.
The main responsibility is let the players play and the spectators watch. That's what we're here for. The main problem we have is moving spectators around the course. Opening crossings, closing crossings, to get as many people across as want to go and yet not stop play. The main problem we have is just the amount of noise that amount of people generates. Trying to keep them quiet. They're all golfers themselves mainly, interested in golf. They've come here to watch and all we need to do is just help them do that.
The numbers that attend an Open Championship, without it, the players just couldn't play.
Would it be green for go as far as Montgomerie was concerned? That was the main topic of conversation among spectators and marshals alike. He was certainly the centre of attention as the leaders went out trying to put daylight between themselves and the chasing pack. The signs were positive when, with so many supporters willing him on, Monty set up a birdie chance at the demanding par 3 fifth. But the putter of the man who topped the European Tour money list for an unprecedented 7 years in succession chose an inopportune moment to go cold. That was bad enough, but 2 shots from a fairway bunker at the 13th, a hole he'd birdied on Friday, was a bigger blow to the darling of the crowd. Even so, despite a 73, he remained in the hunt, and just as importantly, in an optimistic frame of mind.
I can only control one person out there and one ball, and that's me. I know that I can score 65 around here. I've proved that, and if I do that, I have a great chance of winning.
Meanwhile, David Duval continued to press his foot firmly on the pedal and stylishly overtake the opposition. During a sublime 65, every aspect of his game was at optimum efficiency. His huge drive at the 14th and subsequent pitch yielded a birdie. But it wasn't just about power. Short game imagination also played an influential role, especially in saving par at the 17th. The immediate future was bright, but Duval wasn't about to get ahead of himself.
It's hard to say what will happen tomorrow. It might require 65 again and might not. I don't know how the leaders will do. But I just know I have it in me. I think I've proven it. I think I've shown it.
A good day for Duval, who climbed from 48th to joint first, and a memorable day all round. Scoring was low, entertainment value high, as Sergio Garcia vaulted himself into contention with a 67. Miguel Angel Jimenez matched that. The Spaniard, runner-up to Tiger Woods in the US Open at Pebble Beach last year, stood at 5 under par, 1 shot better than his youthful compatriot. This his approach to the second. But the real bonus from Jimenez came 12 holes later. He was to finish the day with a 67 and right in contention. Ernie Els, unable to defend his Scottish Open title a week earlier due to a back injury, returned from a month-long layoff to post rounds of 71, 71, and on Saturday, 67. And Germany's Alex Chaker, whose wife is a leading newsreader back home, threatened to create quite a story of his own before 3 late bogeys saw him settle for a 3rd consecutive round of 69. In fact, with the obvious exception of Duval and Zimbabwe's Nick Price, the leaderboards around the course featured predominantly European challengers. Among them, Darren Clarke, saving par at the 15th, one of the most testing holes with carefully planned pin positions. Relatively inexperienced he might have been, but Fast didn't back away. Relishing his involvement in such a high-stakes game, the Swede's par at the 18th completed a fighting 72. Entering the final round, he was in a tie for 20th, 3 under par. The galleries were full of youngsters, but inside the ropes, a pair of veteran campaigners were showing many of the young bucks a clean pair of heels. Bernhard Langer found himself sharing the lead with 4 others, thanks to a 67. Alongside him, at 6 under par, Ian Woosnam, the Ryder Cup veteran, who also pieced together a 67, which included a rare birdie on the 17th. As you'd expect, the efforts of Langer and Woosnam were warmly received by the occupants of the 18th grandstands.
These are special times. You come and play something in the Open Championship, and especially if you play well, it's fantastic. There's a lot of stake tomorrow, and I'm just going to go out and enjoy it.
So, for the first time since 1959, more than 2 players shared top spot after 54 holes. A further 9 players were only 1 shot adrift, and incredibly, 23 were within 3 strokes of the lead. The statistics of our medical friends? Well, today they included a golfer in distress.
We had quite a busy day, a lot of people falling and tumbling, and one of the players, David Dixon, I believe the amateur that's fortunately made the cut, he was requiring some plasters for his blisters, so he may well not have made the cut otherwise.
Early morning Sunday, the breeze gets up, and it's the responsibility of the Championship Committee to establish the pin positions for the round that will determine the champion golfer of the year. The task is undertaken long before the crowds arrive, and plenty of thought is required, such as here at the 15th, made more testing by the wind direction.
Obviously that hole's going to play into the wind, so it's going to be a long to mid-iron for most of these players, so we didn't want to tuck the pin away and make it unfair. But by the same token, it's the 15th hole of the last round, so we're looking for something that is tough but fair.
The positions of all 18 pins are changed on all 4 days of the championship, and a number of factors have to be taken into consideration.
We basically divide each green into 4 quarters. Wind is obviously a factor, damage, wear and tear. On the first day we tend to use a quarter nearest the walk-off point to the next tee, so that other areas are protected for rounds 2, 3 and 4. In addition to that, of course, we consider how the hole was designed and how the designer would have expected a player to have played the hole, and we tend to make the hole positions more difficult on the par 5s and short par 4s.
Once the decision is made and all of those factors are taken into account, the greenkeeping staff cut the hole and manicure. Its position on the green is measured to the centimetre and charted. It's a precise science with far-reaching implications. After all, pin positions determine the nature of the hole and the championship.
The pin positions today for the final day are pretty difficult, I must say, but they've been set in places where the golfer will have to plan his strategy for a hole, hit the tee shot on a certain side of the fairway, allow him a good line into the flag, and the player who does that will get the birdies.
The crucial information collated, it's given to Ivor Robson, who in turn passes it on to those at the sharp end, the players and caddies, when they arrive on the first tee. The pin position on the opening hole wasn't benevolent by any means, but as Nicholas Fast proved at the first, getting your yardage correct can often overcome protected pin positions. He was to hole his putt for a birdie on the way to an outward 9 that catapulted him from the fringes of contention to pace setter. If Fast was suffering from nerves at such rarefied heights, he disguised it well. He also birdied the 3rd, 6th and 7th to claim sole possession of the lead. And his prospects improved further when, after 3 pars around the turn, he birdied the 11th. 5 under par for the day, 8 under for the championship. Fast was suddenly the one they all had to catch. The putter was cooperating, he looked calm, stubbornly determined, and perhaps most importantly of all, in control of his emotions. Paul Lawrie was an unheralded winner at Carnoustie in 1999. Would we see another in Fast? Colin Montgomerie retained immense support from the public, and after a shaky start, he rekindled hopes of victory by birdieing the 6th. He was amongst a number of hopefuls who enjoyed the ideal introduction to an afternoon that would rank as one of the most meaningful of their careers. Jimenez couldn't equal the first hole accuracy displayed by Fast, but he still managed to walk off with a 2. In contrast, Garcia found trouble on the 4th. From that point, he wasn't to the forefront, and by recording a low-key 70, ended the championship alongside Parnevik, tied for 9th. Time, though, is very much on the side of the 21-year-old. The first 15 minutes of Ian Woosnam's round were the best of times, then the worst of times. Shortly after coming so close to a hole-in-one, which briefly earned him a share of the lead, he suffers a crushing blow. On the second tee, his caddy, Miles Byrne, discovers an extra driver in the bag. 15 clubs, a 2-shot penalty imposed, and that magnificent initial shot nullified.
God, I give you a job to do and you can't do it, Your Honour.
At that moment, I just felt like I'd been kicked in the teeth, and it's hard enough to be level with some of the best players in the world playing, or the best players in the world, and to give them a 2-shot advantage I wasn't feeling too enthusiastic about it. So very disappointed. Took me a few holes to recover.
Had George Lowe not designed Royal Lytham St Annes with a par 3 first, Woosnam could well have realised he was employing an illegal number of clubs and jettisoned the offending driver. As it was, the Welshman, who found heavy rough with his long iron approach to the third, had to shoulder a psychological burden on what would inevitably be a long, trying day. Of course, that also applied to his caddy.
From USA, David Duval.
As Duval stepped onto the first tee, his target was to remove himself from the shortlist entitled Best Player Yet to Win a Major Championship.
Well, my end goal is to win, but you know, when you go out there and you do what you can, and you make putts and you don't make stupid mistakes, and you play well, I just don't see that as failing.
In anyone's language, Duval didn't falter in the early stages. He safely matched par on the first 2 holes before moving to the third, one of the toughest on day 4. At 458 yards, the flag tucked near to the right-hand side of the green was a worrying obstacle. Only 5 before him had birdied the hole on the last day, one of them being fast, but a sweetly struck approach gave him a chance of birdie. To pick up a shot on such a difficult hole so early on was to be of huge advantage for Duval. The deadweight putt that followed secured his 3 and halved what had briefly been a 2-shot advantage for Fast. Darren Clarke, at home on any links course and in common with Monty, the subject of much crowd affection, returns to the mix courtesy of an eagle 3 at the 6th. The day was living up to expectation, and with Fast dropping a shot at 14, the championship was truly open. While Duval stays on course in search of that elusive first major, Montgomerie, looking for his own, is let down once again by his putter, and his hopes fade on the 11th. A 72 for the Scot, tied 13th in the final analysis, and an overwhelming feeling of what might have been. But there's nothing but smiles for David Dixon up ahead at the 18th. The recipient of the silver medal took the first standing ovation of the afternoon in front of a packed gallery on the final hole. Dixon, a survivor of the championship's regional and final qualifying competition, rounds off a week he will never forget at 1 over par. Woods, though, finds it tough to smile. Any lingering thoughts of a successful title defence are dispelled by a triple bogey 6 at the short 12th. A 71, merely joint 25th. When Tiger spread-eagled the field at St Andrews by 8 shots, he was the 5th champion from America in 6 years. Duval improves his chance of being installed as the 6th in 7 by negotiating the dangerous 5th. Confident, he then birdies the 6th before unleashing a drive of fully 360 yards at the next. On the final day, his driving distances average out at 324 yards. With only 181 yards to the green of the par 5, another birdie is forthcoming. and Duval finds himself leading by 2. With the air sucked from his sails, Woosnam bogies the 4th and drops out of the picture. But to the delight of everyone, an eagle at the 6th supplies second wind, and Wales has their favourite restored to the status of contender. Pars at the 15th, 16th and 17th, no mean feat in themselves, leave fast, requiring this at the 18th to set a stern clubhouse target at 8 under par.
Back 9 was going to be playing so tough, and I had done what I could on the front 9 or even first 11 holes. Couldn't really expect more, so I knew I had a chance. For me, it's an inspirational thing to get up there in contention, and I enjoyed that time out there very, very much.
At 7 under, he's the clubhouse leader. After opening his round with 10 straight pars, Lange's visit to the right-hand rough at the 11th is anything but enjoyable. He can only advance the ball down the fairway, and his run of par figures is interrupted by a bogey. He falls to 5 under. Clark continues to press those ahead. The big man finds no trouble on the 11th, and his birdie putt expertly dispatched, he moves to 7 under. Also hot on Duval's heels, Jimenez, on a roll with birdies at the 11th. Then the 13th, to bring up 8 under par and emerge as Duval's closest challenger. And Woosnam, with the hurt of the 15th club incident downgraded from mortal blow to severe handicap, refuses to surrender meekly. He follows the example of Jimenez with a crowd-pleasing birdie from long range at the 11th. How expensive will that 2-shot penalty turn out to be? Duval 1 clear of Jimenez. Fast and Clark next in line, with the remainder under pressure as holes and time run out. At this stage, the crowd are anticipating a 4-hole playoff, but Duval has other ideas. A long bunker shot on the 11th, such a testing shot to execute and judge under the least pressurized of circumstances, leads to a birdie that carries him to 10 under par. It will not be plain sailing, though, as the winner of 13 tournaments and millions of dollars on the ultra-competitive US Tour finds potential trouble for the first time, with an errant tee shot at the 12th. A chink in the armour, maybe? Woosnam made a 3 at the 12th and now has a head of steam. That birdie at the 13th sends the crowd into raptures. He's conducting a masterclass in the art of dealing with adversity. Duval for par at the 12th. A dropped shot and possible turning point for the championship leader. The well-worked birdie of the previous hole undone, operators of the frenetic scoreboards note that Duval has slipped back to 9 under par. But then Jimenez commits a cardinal error. Steering his drive at the 14th into a cavernous fairway bunker. Trapped under the lip, par is beyond him, and when he bogies the 15th in addition, his title chance evaporates. Meanwhile, a birdie at the 18th sees double US Open champion Ernie Els play the closing 10 holes in 3 under par. He finishes the event 6 under the card. Yet another notable major performance from the talented South African. Anyone who maintained Duval's blemish at the 12th would signal a slide was off the mark. Woosnam, short in stature but big in the heart department, will not give up the chase without a battle. His second shot, rifled to the heart of the 14th green, raises hopes of a third birdie in 4 holes. At the 16th, things looked a bit rough for Clark, still standing at 7 under. But from an almost uncontrollable position, he executes a masterstroke in escapism. Unable to impart any spin onto the ball, he releases it towards and almost into the hole. And he's still smoking. To become Open champion, there's a requirement for nerves of steel and a cool head. Coming off a bogey, Duval bounced back, converting his approach on 13 into a birdie like a veteran champion, which moved him back to 10 under par. For Clark, the pressure was mounting and holes were running out. At 16, however, he held his nerve to trim Duval's cushion to just 2 and take full advantage of his exceptional effort from the deep stuff. Clark now at 8 under. For Woosnam, his fairy tale fight back was struggling to keep to the script. Unlike Duval and Clark, he was unable to convert his fine approach at 14 and was left with par. Further frustration came at the treacherous 15th. It appeared that the golfing gods had deserted him again. From here, the best he could manage was a 5, and his brave challenge was over. Teeing off behind him, Duval, so straight and long off the tee from the outset, found deep trouble that would give cause for concern. Clark, meanwhile, 2 holes ahead, had a chance to apply the pressure. But like Jimenez, on the 14th tee, he was unable to locate the fairway when it really mattered, and his ball ran and ran and ran, eventually finding a bunker. From his expression, you couldn't help but sense that he knew the precise cost of that. Back at the 15th, with the pin set in the tightest of spots, Duval had justifiable concerns of his own.
I was 210 yards to the front of the green from there, and I hit 6 iron, expecting to catch a flyer, and I did. I hit it up there to 15, 18 feet. It was unbelievable.
Duval had brushed off the attack of a hole that the great Jack Nicklaus once described as the toughest in major championship golf. Clark's powers of recovery at the 17th did not match that of the previous hole. From trouble to even more trouble. And by the time he missed a short putt up at the green, Clark had recorded a very expensive double bogey 6, ending his challenge and relegating him to a gallant share of 3rd, his best finish since occupying a tie for 2nd at Royal Troon in 1997. To his great relief, Duval parred the 15th, and after further pars at 16 and 17, the race was firmly over. The only contest left for the day was the placings. Billy Mayfair's par on the 18th for a closing 70 enabled him to share joint 3rd, his personal best at the Open. Jimenez, his playing companion, also ended at 6 under par, alongside Bernard Langer. A 71 for Langer, his 6th top 3 finish in the Open Championship since 1981. But there was no stopping Duval, who placed an exclamation mark on his victory by splitting the fairway at the last. Up at the green, Woosnam could finally do his sums to work out that his 15th club had cost him over £200,000, but he still refused to part company with his caddy.
it's the biggest mistake he'll make in his life. He won't do it again, and he's a good caddy. That's all I can say. It's been a good week, and you know, would have taken third or whatever I finished at the beginning of the week. I'll just have to win next year, won't I?
The 2001 Open Championship will be remembered for Woosnam, but most of all for David Duval's steely resolve under pressure. Walking up onto the 18th green, mission accomplished, with the cheers ringing out, he finally began to appreciate how good it feels to be among the select band of major championship winners.
It never entered my mind that I hadn't won a major. I didn't know exactly where I stood until I got to the green and saw that I was 3 shots ahead.
A 67 on the final day, 5 birdies, 1 bogey and 12 pars comprised the golden round that saw Duval's longest-held ambition fulfilled. He won by 3 at 10 under par. He was the new Open champion, and naturally, it meant an awful lot.
I think as much as anything, I was just lucky to experience the crowd on 18 and to experience the final day of the Open Championship, and I enjoyed it. It's a wonderful experience.
It's also a memory that will live with him for the rest of his life. Niklas Fast was second alone, and in the process secured enough points to ensure his debut in the Ryder Cup. But no one could overcome David Duval, delighted to receive the reward his skill so richly merits.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is David Duval.
What a wonderful golf course. God, I just felt like this one's set up for me, just right. I can't thank the grounds crew enough. The course was wonderful. The greens were spectacular. The bunkers were too penal, tough. But I feel really good about this, and I thank you all for being so wonderful and such great fans today, and I will do my best to represent this championship in a great fashion. Thank you very much.
Duval had finally overcome his major obstacle.
I felt a lot more calm today because we are playing a game, and I've made it a lot bigger than it is too at times, and maybe that's some of the reason I felt so good today, is maybe I finally realized it is just a game. Hey, I want to tell a quick story, really, actually. My first trip over here to Great Britain, I played in the Scottish Open in '95, the week before the St Andrews event. And I hit a shot on the 12th hole out of the gorse. Nothing spectacular, you know, I was 170 yards maybe, and somebody said, "Well played, what a wonderful golf shot." And that just made me feel really good about the golf fans in this country.